Hey folks, welcome to the install guide and walkthrough for our new tower bonus data plugin package. This is for the 2025 Nascar tower. Let's get our HUD up. There we go. All right, as always, we'll start with our walkthrough on the install. You're going to download zip file, put it somewhere you can access, go into the plugin manager here in the overlay section of the SDK settings. Once in there, you're going to go to the bottom left, click import, find that plugin file, bring it in. Then once it's here, this one's called, I can't remember what I called it. But anyway, it'll show up when you do it. And then you're going to go over to that components tab of the plugin and hit add to remote control. Again, I can't remember exactly what I called this one in my file, but I know I've got it loaded up. And then you'll have this purple remote right here, tower bonus data, with a couple options and some pit stop assumptions. So we'll kind of just walk through these. Again, this is to add some data to the NASCAR 2025 tower, the SDK component, because it just doesn't have all the things that the Formula One style tower does. And I've also added a couple custom things from some of my other plugins and a more tight package that fits right in there with the tower. We'll just walk through those. So basically the way this works is it covers up whatever the default data is. So if you've got gain or gap, last lap time, all that stuff, that's going to be underneath of this plugin. So if you want to use any of the default data, you need to select none in this plugin. It might be a good idea to add, switching this to none in those buttons to save you a click. But just want to call that out at the beginning. A couple of these, very straightforward. Last lap pit, last pit stop time, number of pit stops, driver I rating, number of laps led. You can do the car images, although loading and rendering this many car images is actually kind of slow. And I'm not really sure if that is the HUD, if it's SDK, if it's hardware based, if it's just I don't have enough RAM or whatever. So I don't use that one a lot, but it's there. And once you click it once and then switch back and forth, it usually holds them all. So it might be something where you remember to do this pre-race, and then you won't have to see that slow loading as you go. We've also got country. We've only got US drivers in this example race, and people who haven't selected anything is there. And then team is in there as well. So this will be team logos from the multi-car team overrides, or the team name, or just a hyphen if it's empty. So you can see most of the drivers in this league race that I broadcast, they all have team logos with the exception of Joe Barrow. And so there he is in 16th. His just says Barrow Motorsports. That's the text out of his team name from his SDK driver info. Whereas Green in the 27 and 6th place, he doesn't have any team information. It shows up like that. This is super helpful at a track like Talladega, where it's really important to know, where are the teammates in the field. That's where I find this one the best. Next up, we've got the pit strategy option. If you've ever used a bunch of my plugins, use this. So we basically use these assumptions down below to figure out what people did on their pit stops. And so you set the first number to be whatever pit stop is below this number of seconds. You assume they took fuel only. So in NASCAR truck and cup races, I usually use 8 or 9, somewhere around there. And then the next number is, what below which you assume they took 2 tires. So I usually use 12 for that. So in this case, any pit stop that's between 9 and 12 seconds will get labeled as 2 tires. And then the same for repairs. Any pit stop between 12 and 18 will be labeled as a 4-tire stop, and any stop over 18 seconds, you'll assume someone made repairs. Again, SDK and iRacing don't have this information from the race, how many tires someone took in their pit stop. So we're just trying to infer it from the pit stop times. But it is on you as the user to figure out what those thresholds should be. Like I said, I usually use 8, 12, 18 or 9, 12, 18 for NASCAR Cup and Truck. Xfinity, I think they're a little bit faster. You might need to tweak it a little bit here and there. But that just gives that summary in the tower. So it shows you what that last stop was and how many laps it's been since then. This wasn't a really good example part of the race because I think the whole field just pitted, but you can see that Barris went with 4 tires while everyone else went with fuel, and things like that. So this is always helpful when you're trying to remember who's on fresher tires and whatnot. And then we've got estimated fuel. This is probably the coolest one. This is the one I'm using the most. And this is another instance where we do not have this data, right? You have your own fuel data in the API data packets that are coming from iRacing, but you don't have other people's. So if you're spectating, you're not going to have anybody's. And this is very simple math. You take a swing at how many laps you think drivers can go on fuel. You type it in with these pit stop assumptions, and the plugin does the math for you. So and you can change it live. So even if you get it wrong in the race, you can go back and figure out what the right number is. I feel like every time I think I know what the fuel window is, a driver stretches it an extra 2 laps and proves me wrong. So then I come in and just kind of add this, update it during the race to get the best fuel gauges I can get from there. And then another one, this is a special request from someone. This one's called Speed Trap. And we're under caution here in this replay. Let's see if we can speed this up. This is kind of a fun one. You see it on TV sometimes, but what it does is as the drivers are coming to the start-finish line, if you show the speed trap, it'll come up blank. And it's essentially their speed at the start-finish line. So we call that a speed trap, and at least in the U.S., that when the police set up a radar gun, they call it a speed trap. And so it looks like as they come around to the line, you'll see they kind of populates as they get there. So it should come down the leaderboard, which is kind of a nice effect. And then it has some color coding where green is the fastest drivers and red is the slowest. And again, a track like Talladega, this is where this is probably the most interesting, where you can see like Barris and Taylor were losing a lot of pace there on that lap. They were probably falling out of the draft. You can see the 17 of Barris is up there by himself with no help. So that's why his speed was so low. And Dinda was getting a push probably from a teammate or something. Anyway, that was just kind of a fun one here and there. I think we covered them all. Like I said, a lot of these are just straight out of SDK and iRacing standard data. They just weren't options in this NASCAR tower before. So this just gives you a little flexibility. And then things like the fuel gauge and the pit strategy are really a unique kind of custom add-on. But hope you guys like this one. It's not overly complicated. If there's anything else you think you'd like to see added, let me know. And if it's possible, then we can absolutely get it added. But yeah, that is the NASCAR Tower bonus data plugin package.